So it made it like really cool that like the artists would still get credit for streams and stuff rather than having it embedded in the episode. I really liked that. So I thought it would be fun as like an album comes out, listen to the whole album with like commentary and stuff. And if you go back to the past episodes, those are still there. Like you can still listen to that way, but you can't do new ones anymore. So that definitely sucks. But
That's too bad.
yeah, my original thing I always wanted to do was more like a radio show kind of thing. But I don't know, when that thing kind of, those ideas kind of came up and those sounded like fun things to do, it's hard to say no.
Mm-hmm.
And those definitely had way higher listen numbers than like the radio ones, but the radio apps were way easier to put together.
How many hours would you say it took you to make an album breakdown podcast?
Oh, wow. Like probably 7 or 8.
Mm-hmm.
Depends on how, because some of them, like the Bad Operation one, I remember that being like, we talked for like 2 hours. Like they had so much to say about each song. And it was still like so freshly out of the pandemic and stuff that they just had a ton to say. And they, as of that time, hadn't even played a show yet. So they were really like making sure that people understood everything. And that one, it was so long. And there was a couple others. Like there was the one where it's not really a full breakdown, more like a partial breakdown, but the one where Camoy and Tape Girl are on together and they talk for almost 3 hours. That one took me probably 10 hours. Yeah, it was a lot of work editing those. The one with Reed, I edited that in a way where it was only from her perspective, talking about ordinary life. That one took quite a while to probably 8 hours, something like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, Ska Punk International or SPI? Do we prefer SPI at this point, or both, or just use interchangeably?
Yeah, I use it interchangeably. I mean, the name really started as like a keyword search thing. Like there were some others doing some stuff with ska in their name that I felt like weren't the best at what they were doing. And so I thought, well, I could quickly outrank them if I just kind of put the same thing in my name. And it's up to interpretation if I'm doing a better job or not about anything, which I don't actually think I am, but I knew that we could get some quick like traffic on stuff if I just put that in the name.
Yeah, so Ska Punk International, the record label, now correct me if I'm wrong, weren't you initially kind of interested more in being like a distributor of records already released in other countries?
I mean, it's not that I was interested in only that. It's more like that's what I could afford. It's like we just didn't have the money to just like do a bunch of pressings of stuff. So it was more like I had recently interviewed people from different labels like Pook and I don't even remember all the labels I started with at first. TNS from the UK, I guess. So like Bev, I think it was just Bev that was on the show, but you know, basically saying like, hey, let me send you $300 and you tell me what stuff I can get for that versus, you know, $2,600 for a vinyl pressing.
Yeah.
It was more like starting with what I could and then seeing how it goes from there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, record labels in the past and definitely in the present moment, you know, when it comes to indie labels, kind of are scenes as well as just distributors. There's like, it's not just random stuff. There's like the bands have like, it just represents a scene, right? And do you feel like SPI represents a specific scene that's maybe not, that is a subset of the ska scene?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of ways that like our bands all like have things that like relate to each other and they'll like feature on each other's releases. Like some of these albums even look kind of like mixtapes or something with like other people from the label or like a little bit like the scene at large. Like the Power Up album has like 6 or 7 features on it. Stuff like that. And you know, and our shows are like similar to the inclusive and kind of chaotic nature to like the larger New Tone shows. But ours are like by and large a little bit more chaotic. Like when you have a band like Hans Gruber and the Diehards is kind of like one of your flagship bands, like things are gonna be kind of chaotic. But we kind of lean into that. Like we have no problem with that. Like a lot of our bands are ones that at some point or another have been told they were too much this or too much that or too whatever to fit somewhere. And I very much gravitate to people and bands like that.
Hmm.
And so they all kind of like connect and become really close like really quickly. So that definitely leads to sort of like a sub scene feeling.
I know that there's some variance in terms of the sound of the SPI bands, but do you feel like in general there's an SPI sound?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that if you asked five people, like five of our like super fans or our SPI or diehards, some people will say, like that are on our like Discord server, I think you'd get five different answers to that. A lot of our stuff has been pretty like heavy, like different like branches of things from like ska core, but at the same time, we've definitely had some poppier stuff. I mean, the Precure album is one of our biggest things, and that's definitely not a heavy album.
Hmm.
It's a fucking ska punk rock opera. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't think there is one specific sound. I think there are people on some parts of the scene that see us as like a heavy label because we do have a lot of that, but a lot of our bigger albums aren't even that heavy, really.
Mm.
So it's kind of a weird question for me. I don't think there is one specific sound because I'm not even drawn to one specific sound. Like I just kind of know stuff I like and will say yes to stuff I like. You know.
Yeah, that's kind of my next question is what do you feel like influences you to sign or not sign a band when you're presented with them?
Okay, yeah, it's easier to answer what I don't want than what I do. Um, and it's also different from when we first started to now. Now, a lot of what influences it is someone already on the label will be like, dude, you got to hear this band. And they'll be like sending me videos or something from a show because they're playing with them. And that'll happen two or three different times. Like, for example, I think it was near the end of 2023. Runaway Ricochet did a tour on the East Coast. And literally every day for a week, I got a video from one of our bands because they were playing with different, like they played with like Mega Infinity in New York. They played with Power Up in Boston. They played with K-Moy, maybe in Philly. Maybe it was also at the same show with Mega. I can't totally remember. But Kaylee literally like called me and put the phone in her pocket so I could like hear some of the set. I got videos from Diglo from Mega Infinity. I got videos from Aaron from Power Up. And literally, like the first one was like, yeah, because I already knew of them. I had met Saxon from that band at our first SPI Fest, and I had heard a few songs. But the reason everyone was freaking out was because they were like growing the sound, being a little bit more like prog rocky, like our Expandits kind of thing. And it is pretty fucking wild. So on the first video, you could hear that, like, okay, yeah, I'm in on this. But then as it keeps happening, it's like, okay, I got to reach out to this band. So that happens a lot now. Early on, like the stuff that I've always been most drawn to, as far as anything related to ska, is kind of the way the international part of our name. I should back up and say, more than anything, comes from the fact that the way I treat ska, because of my background as a DJ, is the way most bands in other countries do, which is like one of like 10 different things that they might put into a song. So if any band is doing that, that's immediately something I like. And so then it becomes a matter of if they want to do some stuff together, because some bands don't want to. They want to do their own thing, or they are already doing stuff somewhere else, or they don't have some of the stuff that I'm very, very interested in. You'll reach out and they'll be like, oh, we're cool. We just play a couple times here locally and we don't really want to do much else. And hey, respect to that. No worries. But I hope they keep doing cool shit. But a lot of times a band just needs like to feel like someone believes in them,
Mm-hmm.
and then they'll just start putting out all kinds of like wild shit, and they just write new kinds of stuff. And so a lot of that is what I'm drawn to, which is like, okay, you guys are doing something very interesting and ska is just one part of like a million other things that you like.